Oh, my fur and whiskers! I'm late! Oh dear! I'm here! I should be there! Oh, I'm late! Oh, the Queen! She'll have my head for sure!
Well then, hello everyone and welcome back to Let's Play Kingdom Hearts Final Mix. In the last part, we wrapped up our duties over in Deep Jungle for now, finishing off its plot, and finally made our way to what's meant to be your first real world, Wonderland. Like I mentioned last time, the reason I largely went out of the way to do Deep Jungle first was so I could get the Cure spell as early as possible, which is especially a poignant move on Proud Mode. But not for nothing, having the Jungle King here for a couple of extra points of strength, despite its own shortcomings with crit rates and recoil, is actively really smart too. And not for nothing, the extra levels will help too, plus I genuinely do find the boss of this world harder than Stealth Sneak was over in Deep Jungle. Helps that I think progression's also easier in Deep Jungle for reasons we'll see as we go. Before we investigate that door, we actually want to do one thing really quick. We want to push this bed into the wall to open up that little doorway there.
How did he get so small?
No, you're simply too big.
That cracks!
Must you be so loud? You woke me up.
Good morning.
Good night. I need a bit more sleep.
Wait, what do we have to do to grow small?
Why don't you try the bottle? Over there.
If it's not clear so far, by the way, while Deep Jungle was the movie Tarzan, this is Disney's Alice in Wonderland. And they definitely take advantage of the wackiness of the setting they're in, as well as the movie they're in, because they do all sorts of stuff to make you interact with the environment around here. From here, our goal is actually to go through the door that was behind the bed I pushed. That's why I pushed it before talking to the doorknob, as that way I didn't need to grow back up after being shrunken down once. Most of the enemies we're going to be fighting for the first chunk here are ones from Traverse Town as well. Shadows and soldiers pretty much all over the place.
Court is now in session!
I'm on trial? But why?
Her Majesty, the Queen of Hearts, presiding.
This girl is the culprit. There's no doubt about it. And the reason is? Because I say so, that's why.
That is so unfair.
Well, have you anything to say in your defense?
Of course. I've done absolutely nothing wrong. You may be queen, but I'm afraid that doesn't give you the right to be so mean.
Silence! You dare defy me?
Hey guys, we should help her out.
We're outsiders, so wouldn't that be muddling? Oh, yeah. And that's against the rules.
The court finds the defendant guilty as charged for the crimes of assault and attempted theft of my heart. Off with her head!
No! Oh, please!
Hold it right there!
Who are you? How dare you interfere with my court?
Excuse me, but we know who the real culprit is.
Uh-huh. It's the Heartland.
Anyway, she's not the one you're looking for.
That's nonsense. Have you any proof?
Bring me evidence of Alice's innocence. Fail, and it's off with all of your heads. Gather as much or little evidence as you please. Report back here once you're ready.
So our first goal here in Wonderland, once we're actively in the thick of it, is actively to find pieces of evidence to protect Alice from being executed.
Before you sits Her Royal Majesty, the Noble Queen of Hearts.
Thank you, small rabbit. Our goal is through the door to my right, but worth noting you should hit this save point up as soon as possible, as it's pretty easy to screw some minor things up in this world, on top of the fact that's actively the main save point you're going to be using throughout the world to begin with.
are you? Who, indeed? Poor Alice, soon to lose her head, and she's not guilty of a thing.
Hey, if you know who the culprit is, tell us.
The Cheshire Cat has all the answers, but doesn't always tell. The answer, the culprit, the cat, all lie in darkness. Wait! They've already left the forest. I won't tell which exit. There are 4 pieces of evidence in all. 3 are a cinch to find. The 4th is tricky. Big reward if you find them all. Should we trust him? To trust or not to trust? I'll trust you'll decide.
The Cheshire Cat just told us the long and short of it pretty easily. There are 4 pieces of evidence we can find to prove Alice's innocence. With that said, you don't need them all. You can actively do it with just 1 piece of evidence. Just it's really not recommended because the odds are really against you for reasons we'll talk about in a few moments. Give me an ether. So across the Lotus Forest here, there are several flowers you can talk to who will ask for items. Normally an ether or a potion. I think there's at least one that asks for a high potion in a different part of the room though. What they'll do is largely give you an item for giving them an item. Specifically, that one, for instance, will give you a camping set. Not really worth it for my tastes, but hey, if you want it, it's there. That pink box I just grabbed contained footprints. That is our first piece of evidence. And if you want to just get through this world as quickly as possible, you can just take that and take it back to the Queen, and that's all you'll need. With that said, I really would not recommend it, especially on a first playthrough, because you might want more levels out of this region before you can do anything else. That little corner of the room there actively did also have another flower we can talk to, and after I take care of these Heartless, I actually am going to go back there and give it the item it wants, because I actively have it. It wants a potion. Give me a potion. For doing that, it will transform that into a high potion as well as some MP bubbles. Worth noting, using items on entities that aren't in your main party is definitely a little awkward because they appear as a 4th option on the target list, but only when you're like right next to the target in question. It's kind of awkward to do. That would probably have just been a triangle command in later games. In the meanwhile, let's talk about more voice actors. In English, the White Rabbit and Doorknob here in Wonderland actively share a voice actor actually, Corey Burton, roles he'd reprised several times in other versions of the characters. He's another A-lister who's been in pretty much anything and everything, but other notable roles include being Ludwig von Drake, since the character I think first got a voice in Disney cartoons, Dale and everything post-Chippendale Rescue Rangers, Moliere and Atlantis the Lost Empire, as well as any other occurrences of that character, Ratchet and Megatron in Transformers Animated, Zeus in the God of War games, and he's also the person they often choose to replace the late Sir Christopher Lee as Count Dooku and other roles. There's also another character or two he voices a lot of that are also in this game, but I'll save revealing that for when those characters actually, show up. The Lotus Forest is a pretty awkward area to platform around in, I won't lie, to the point where I think it's where most players are first going to encounter issues with Sora's jumping, either with the timing of pressing the button versus when he actually jumps, the jump arc in general, what corners and edges you can grab onto, which ones you can't. It's a whole lot of learning just by trial and error, and it doesn't feel the best. It's like if that one jump for that treasure chest back in Deep Jungle was an entire room. Right there we got the stench. Partnered that with the antenna we grabbed while I was talking about Corey Burton. We now have 3 of the 4 pieces of evidence we need in order to actively help prove Alice's innocence. With that said, we should keep in mind what the Cheshire Cat said. 3 of the pieces of evidence we need are very easy to find. We've now found all 3 of them. The 4th one is in a noticeably trickier location and also a much trickier route to figure out on a first-time run. But if we find them all, we are going to get a really good bonus on top of everything else. With that said, we do have a new Heartless here, but it looks a little familiar for this playthrough already. This is a Red Nocturne, who notably shares a character model with Black Balance, and there's a reason for that. Heartless shaped like this are the Heartless Mages. They'll cast spells that match their color. So for instance, Red Nocturnes focus on casting fire magic, fire and Fyra specifically. If they use an attack while moving, that's just going to be fire, but if they stop and charge it for a second, that's going to be Fyra, and it does more damage. Now, I haven't really talked about drops from enemies too much thus far, and that's because it hasn't really mattered yet. By and large, every enemy has at least 2 drops, usually some sort of consumable item, and then a synthesis item. I'm going to save talking about most of that for when it's actually more relevant when I do the synthesis farming, but worth noting, you can get blaze shards from Red Nocturnes. So this yellow flower here, if we use a potion on it, actively makes Sora grow like 3 times his height. And this allows us to do some unique interactions here in Lotus Forest, like we can jump on that log to raise it up, and we can also attack this tree to spin it around. Just make sure before you do that, you actively also take this nut down, because that's actively how you shrink yourself again. I want to say the big benefit to having the tree rotated is that it allows you to reach that scan gene we got from a treasure chest a few moments ago, but I think it does also allow you to reach something else a little more easily. The thing is, when we stepped on that one tree trunk, it made another lily pad rise up, so we now have another little lotus route we can use to get to this door up here in this corner. This is going to more or less take us to where the fourth piece of evidence is. With that said, there's a scary jump between you and it, because it's over there on that other ledge that we saw in the corner. Worth noting, the first-person mode that the HG remixes added can be really useful for helping readjust your camera, but it's not always the most reliable. Sora will pretty much always grab that ledge, but it definitely feels a little scary. And there's the claw marks. Well, look what you found. Nice going. Now we can save Alice. Don't be so sure. She may be innocent, but what about you? What do you mean? I won't tell, but I'll give you something. And for getting all 4 pieces of evidence, we get the Blizzard spell. Worth noting, you get that no matter what from this world, but if you don't get all 4 pieces of evidence first, you don't get it until you actively finish the world, and it can actively help you along the way. Heck, worth noting, if you actively use Blizzard on Red Nocturnes, you actively get 2 tech points for that because you used a spell of the opposite element. That's a general rule of thumb with them. There's a Blizzard version that you can also use the Fire spell on to get the same effect going. With that, we're now good to showcase all the evidence to the Queen. To do that, just talk to either of the cards directly in front of her podium. Are you ready to present evidence before the Queen? Very well. Council, step up to the podium. Now then, show me what you have found. Well, that's certainly a lot of evidence, but I'm still not impressed. Cards, bring forth my evidence. Checking all 5 would only be a waste of time. All right then, choose the one you wish to present. I'll decide who's guilty based on that evidence. What, after all the trouble of collecting it? You dare object? Then you will lose your head. Now choose one box. I'll talk more about the ins and outs of this in a moment, but worth noting that no matter what, at the end of the day, this is still random, even if it's ultimately in your favor should you get all 4 pieces of evidence. What in the world was that? There's your evidence. Alice is innocent. Silence! I'm the law here! Article 29. Anyone who defies the Queen is guilty. That's crazy. Seize them at once! Cards, if they touch the tower, you lose your heads! So this is actually another bit of a problem fight for a lot of first-time players, especially as children. We need to destroy the wheels on the tower and then the tower itself to get Alice back down. With that said, the Queen's cards are always going to be harassing you while you're doing this, and while you can take them out, you can only really take them out temporarily as they will get back up after a moment. So the way that those boxes work we were dealing with a moment ago is that no matter what, the Queen will showcase 5 pieces of evidence. It's just that that means at most you can have an 80% chance of proving Alice innocent or a 20% chance. And the more boxes she has in her favor, your friends can also get accused and actively put in cages themselves. So thankfully, as I'm showing in this footage, you can actively just free them by attacking the cages enough. She must have gotten kidnapped while we were fighting. You fools! Find the one who's behind this! I don't care how! So now that Alice is kidnapped, thankfully the Queen no longer wants to kill us because there's bigger priorities, I suppose. With that said, that cutscene does actively open up a new door back at the Lotus Forest. Before I go back there, though, I want to go back to the Bazaar Room in case something actively spawns in here, and it does. If you get a set of enemy waves here in the Bazaar Room area when you're small, that's nothing but a bunch of shadows. This will actively culminate in a new enemy spawning known as a Gigas Shadow. These, from my memory, are another Final Mix exclusive Heartless variants. The way they work is that whenever they hit you, they actively despawn. You get specific synthesis items for killing certain amounts of them to the point where you kill all 7 of them that spawn in, you get, I think, like 1 or 2 of them on top of a bunch of lucid shards that are dropped by either them or the base shadows along the way. I'll talk more about the item itself and how many we need, though, again, once I get to the synthesis farm at the end of the LP. I also want to grow back to Sora's normal size and head back to the room we started the world in, as at this point we can go back there and there's going to be an enemy rush waiting for us that will ultimately culminate in another treasure chest spawning in. And there might even be a new Heartless here, let's find out. In the meanwhile, worth noting on the Japanese side of the voice cast, the White Rabbit is actively voiced by Shigeru Ushiyama, who voiced the character in the Japanese dub for the movie. He also played Sir Kay in Sword of the Stone, the Mad Hatter in Batman the Animated Series, Dr. Hirook in One Piece, Edo in the 3D animated Ultraman anime, and Lonsdale in Bravely Default 2 alongside several other roles. This is the next new Heartless. These are large bodies. Large bodies are effectively the main Heartless tank for a good while of the game because they have a lot more health than any of their friends. Magic can thankfully melt through it pretty quickly. Attack-wise, they can swing their arms around in a circle to just keep things away from them. They can just kind of bounce their belly forward to try and damage you outright. But the big thing is, when they get low on HP, they will do a rush attack where they chase down whoever they're directly facing, usually Sora outright. You can actively dodge roll out of the way of that, or actively time a Keyblade swing to prevent them from actively chasing you too far, though, and that's usually how you get tech points from them. Have you seen Alice?
Alice, no. Shadows, yes.
Where did they go?
This way, that way, does it matter? Left, right, up, down, all mixed up thanks to the shadows. Step deeper into the forest to the deserted garden. You might find shadows in the upside-down room.
Well, vague and, I guess, helpful. Worth noting, though, with large bodies, you can actively only damage them from behind unless you're using magic. Their belly is effectively a shielded point for physical attacks. I think they also can do an attack where they jump up and do a shockwave on the floor, but I seldom see them do that. I might even be thinking of their appearance in Kingdom Hearts 2 when it comes to that. Also, because I've now used it a few times, let's talk about the Blizzard spell we got a few moments ago. Blizzard is a really good early game spell because I think it is actively stronger than Fire outright. The way it works is that Sora actively kind of like shotgun blasts icicles out of his Keyblade in a spread shot formation. It's not as rapid fire as Fire for obvious reasons, but it is ultimately really useful. With that said, worth noting, while it's really good at clearing out hordes of enemies that are trying to track you down, I think it can only hit an individual enemy once per spread from my own experience, so watch out for that. With that said, now that we're at this point of the plotline here in Wonderland, we can actively grow into large Sora again and actively push the rock that the Cheshire Cat brought in into the water to raise a few more lily pads so we can now access a little closed-in area to the left of the region at large. The main reason I did this is actually for a door that leads to another region of Wonderland here, but there is also notably a blue trinity and another flower you can use items on here. So, going back to the voice cast, the doorknob here in Wonderland in Japanese is voiced by Takahiro Koyama. He played various Disney voices for Japanese dubs over his career, namely the doorknob itself, Goofy at least twice. He's Rabbit in a lot of the old Winnie the Pooh stuff, but he also played Carl Beaumont in the Japanese dub of Batman Mask of the Phantasm, Laughing Bull in Cowboy Bebop, Gregorio in Skies of Arcadia, and Raminas Dalmasca in Final Fantasy XII. Now, if you were a kid like me and rotating the camera constantly where you could to see if you could see extra little secrets, this little room taunted you in a couple ways for a while because it's also what leads you to a specific treasure chest in the Queen's Castle area, this one right here to the right of the main entrance in the Bizarre Room, which gets us another set of Dalmatians. Now, as we enter the Lotus Forest, I actually get lucky this time around and we get to see the first of a rare spawn that's in several worlds, White Mushroom Heartless. These guys pretty much exist entirely for synthesis and a side quest. The way they work is that they're actively completely non-aggressive, but as they walk around, they'll do several animations that match up to a spell you need to use on them. Use a spell correctly on them 3 times in a row, you get some tech points and the chance for some drops. Use the same spell 3 times in a row if they do the right animation, and you get an entirely different item alongside the usual drop chances and tech points. With the spells I have right now, I can only do the Cure, Blizzard, and Fire animations. For Fire, they need to be kind of like shivering in place, implying they're cold. For Blizzard, they need to be kind of kneeling on the floor, waving at their face, trying to cool themselves off. And I don't even think the ones here in Wonderland can do the Cure animation, but I think the ones back at Deep Jungle that can spawn in can. I think the ones in Deep Jungle can spawn in exclusively at the camp area. For using the same spell on them 3 times in a row, you get an arts item, which there's one for every spell. We want to get them all for a side quest involving Merlin back at Traverse Town. But the other item they can drop is known as Mystery Goos. We need several of those for synthesis stuff down the line. These guys are actively some of your best friends to see on Proud Mode, as it's relatively free experience, but also it means the room isn't going to be actively as aggressive against you if you're having issues in certain worlds. Worth noting, there is a new doorway that opened here in the Lotus Forest, like I mentioned prior, and it's actively directly behind me right now. It's in the very back here of the Lotus Forest, and it'll lead to a new area. But as the Cheshire Cat had said, the shadows mixed up all the directions, and due to that, we actually want to go back through the door in the tree trunk on the second layer, but I do need to actually get it back into position to do that because I haven't rotated. In the meanwhile, let's talk about one more voice actor. In specific, let's talk about Alice. Alice here is voiced by Catherine Beaumont, who also voiced her in the original 1951 film. Heck, she even played Alice physically from an old Disney attraction once. She also voiced a very notable character in another Disney animated film from the same time period, but I'll again save that for later because she might also play that character in this game called A Hunch. But with that, I'm going to need to end this off here. Thank you guys for watching, and in part 9, I think we're going to go finish off our time here in Wonderland before moving on towards our next world. See you guys then.